People say I'm toxic, and honestly, I don't care.
Hello and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm Abs of October Red and I'm joined by Matchroom's CEO, Frank Smith. Always a pleasure, and thank you so much for coming on. A welcomed returned guest.
Anytime. I'm always here.
Frank, we've got to talk about the show that's just happened. Unfortunately, I've just missed it. You know, the one out in Oz. Justice Huni. I think, was it Conor? I'm saying Conor
Wallace.
Wallace, there you go. Yeah, talk to us about that, because unfortunately I've been doing little bits in the house and I've missed it.
I've been flying and went straight into a meeting, so I've also too missed it, unfortunately. So I haven't got anything to give you. I mean, I've literally just walked out of a meeting, come on to here. So it's all fresh. I know that is probably not the most professional answer, but there's only so much you can do in a day.
Well, to be fair, if you're flying across, obviously, to where your fight is Monaco, then yeah, I get it. I've only saw the highlights. Justice Huni, I think he gets his guy out of there, I think, from the highlights that you guys have put up in round number 2. So I just want to touch on Justice Huni. What are we doing? What's the plan around him? And I cheekily put out a tweet yesterday, an X, about him potentially, if there is a Matchroom versus Queensbury 5v5, I'd like to see him in with David Adelaide, who obviously got that first round knockout with Solomon Dakers on the weekend. But what are your thoughts? What's happening with Justice?
Yeah, look, another win for him, which is what he needs. He needs that activity. You know, he had a tough fight against Kevin Lorena in Saudi earlier in the year. But as we've seen, Kevin Lorena, you know, especially with the Dubois result, you know, it's shown the level Kevin Lorena's at as well. But you know, for us now, we got to deliver the big fights for Justice. He will fight anyone. I know that, like, a lot of people say that, but he actually will take any fight. And I think he's just on that cusp, really, of getting a big win against someone that sends him to that next level, you know, and gets him being spoken about by the big names in the heavyweight division. So I think we need to get him a win like that. Like you say, that could be an interesting fight. You know, the other fight, Joe Joyce, if he chooses to carry on, that could be an interesting fight for him as well. But there's lots of fights to be made. And like I say, he wants the biggest fights in the division. He's not shying away from anyone. You know, a lot of fighters say that, but when it comes to it, don't always go through with it. But Justice is ready for anyone.
Yeah, he looks a lot more in shape this time round as well. Obviously, he's taking his health and his nutrition. I think sometimes, and we can touch on that, sometimes when we think it's heavyweights, they haven't still got to look after their health and their nutrition and still have the aesthetics of a boxer. I mean, we can go straight over your former fighter, Lawrence Okolie, had his heavyweight debut. And one of the things that came out of a lot of the critics, the boxing critics, was his weight, the extra weight that he had on. To me, I didn't take it anyway. I just thought, yeah, he still moved around quite nicely, but it was another round 1 knockout. So we didn't have that chance to say, does the weight suit him? Was he sluggish because it was so quick? But your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, what was he, 260 or 270 pounds, which is huge when you, which is huge when you think of where he's, you know, making £200. Not saying it was easy for him to make £200 in all those fights. Obviously, then won the Bridgerweight title as well. But it's a huge jump to get used to. I mean, look, great finish from him. The opponent was limited in a sense of it, not the levels that he's talking about that he wants to fight. You know, but everyone, even back from the amateur days when people spoke about Lawrence, you know, he'd spar all the big names in the heavyweight division. He's been in with all of them in sparring. And sparring is very different to fighting. But, you know, maybe this will suit him. Like you say, it's hard to say after a first round stoppage like that, can he box for 12 rounds at that weight? You know, it's very different. But he did what he needed to do. He went in there in a spectacular first round knockout. And something that probably in the past he's been, you know, look, it's quite open and out there around, some of his fights haven't been as entertaining, you know, and I'm sure he would say that as well. But he's delivering knockouts, and that's what people want to see, you know. And when you deliver a knockout like he did in that kind of fashion, it sets up big fights. I know there's talk about, he's been talking about the Dillian White fight, Dillian fights this weekend on DAZN on Sunday, I believe, in Gibraltar. So there's a lot of big fights to be made. He's in a great position, and he's just got to keep doing that. But it'll be interesting to see how he develops and goes through the motions and the rounds at that size, because it's a big difference.
Yeah, I think I don't know the channel that he went on, but boxing group WhatsApp that I'm in, I think somebody mentioned that he may have said, yeah, all right, I'll probably trim down to around the 240 mark when I go into my next fight. But to me, he looks all right. What's it like for you guys when you see, like, because Lawrence Okolie was one of your seedlings. It's almost like Joshua Buatsi, they're one of your babies, and then they go off on their journey that's outside Matchroom, and they go through their processes, and then you see them almost like develop. What's that like looking from? I know you're quite cold, you're black and white, but do you see it like that? Like, oh, my one of my kids, one of my early kids has gone off to university and he's doing well. Well done to him, even though he's not with the family anymore.
Yeah, look, we have different relationships with all different fighters. Like Chris Billam-Smith's a perfect example, who I saw, he came to our magazine launch the other week. He's a fighter that the position he was in and the position we were in terms of just moving to DAZN, it didn't really fit and align with what he wanted to do and what we wanted to do. But I said to him, I couldn't be happier. Like, he's such a nice bloke, as an example, Chris.
Yeah.
Couldn't be happier for what he's done. Forget the fact he's not with us anymore. And every fighter you have a different relationship with. And look, at the end of the day, life's short. You got to get on with things and wish people the best of luck. And there's been full circle moments. Look at Josh Warrington. Really had his early days with us, then went across to Frank Warren, then ended with that, or not ended, but he still wants to carry on. But the last 6, 7 fights, 3, 4 years with us. So, like, this is a sport where don't write anything off from happening. And yeah, we just want to see great fights. And yeah, it's good to see people succeed.
It's
I saw
interesting.
Lawrence, and I said to Lawrence, though, like, when I saw him back, he opened a restaurant. This was a few months back. I was like, congrats on that. So, it is what it is. That's life. People come and go, and just like any business.
It's interesting because I really didn't know that Josh started off. I thought he was always with Matchroom, so a bit of education for me. I didn't realize that he went over to Frank Warren and then come back to yourself. So is the door? Do you have like an open door policy with some fighters? I guess there's going to be criteria, but do you have like that open door policy with fighters then? Say if they want to come back.
Yeah, look, I'm not. Look, boxing is a sport that brings up a lot of issues, as we all know. And there's no need to go over them. But there's never a sense of we will never work with someone again. If it makes sense, it has to make sense for everyone. It doesn't mean the relationship's always going to be the same. If a fighter it changes the relationship, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's less of a longer term mindset. And I spoke about this with someone yesterday around. When you look at fighters, obviously they're always going to do what's best for them, and rightly so. It's a dangerous sport, but sometimes in boxing, the short-term gains are not as good as they look in terms of the longer-term prospect of where you can go to.
Where you can go.
Some fighters, will go and take, and AJ is always someone we come back to with this. He had multiple opportunities throughout the years to go and do other things when our deal would come up at certain points. But I think he always believed in the vision and where it would go to, and he believed in himself. So when you believe in yourself, you're not going to sell yourself short. And I think it just shows. And I've said this so many times, and it's not just with us and AJ, but if you align yourself with someone and go, you are the people for me, they will do everything for it. Like, there is nothing I wouldn't do for AJ because of the loyalty he's shown and the person he is. It's different if I sign you and we do 3 years together and we invest a lot of money, which we do. And sometimes that's lost in a sense, right? It's forgotten about the first 3 years. And then they get to the heights and it's like they want to make, we have to try and recoup investment. That's life. That's any business. And sometimes it's easier to be upfront and straight with that. But obviously fighters are always looking at, can I go and get more money doing X, Y, Z? And sometimes in the short term, there are opportunities to get paid more for a one-off here or 2 fights here. But if you're looking at the longevity of a career, if you believe in yourself and you believe in the path you're going to go down, sticking with a promoter, I believe, is the best way to do it. And I'm not just saying that's us, but that's us with X individuals. That's Frank Warren with Y individuals. Like, for everything I say about Boxer, they've done a great job with Chris Billam-Smith as an example, someone who's had tremendous success. So, like, you know, I think it's easy for me to sit here and say that, and people go, yeah, but I've got an opportunity to do this. But that's just my feeling. If someone says to you, you're the people, you will do anything for them. That's the reality of life, isn't it? In any walk of life, someone shows you faith, trust, forget boxing for a second. That's what you do.
Yeah, I do like that. A bit of loyalty with it. I've got to go to the chat because if I don't, they'll strangle me later on. So good afternoon to the chat, good morning or good evening, wherever you are in the world. So we do our pleasantries first. Maka, good afternoon to yourself and yourself as well, Chris. Right, okay. So Chris is saying that he did a watch along with Huni and Wallace this morning. Wallace, what a fight. He gave that energy when I actually spoke to him a couple of weeks ago. So here we go. Owen's got a question. Question for Frank. Rumors you were going January the 17th in the UK, but has moved to January the 25th, and you're doing 2 shows on the one day. Is there anything in that? Is that something that you can enlighten us on? Because I'm out the window with that one. Thanks for your question, Owen.
We're working on the schedule now. Announcement hopefully towards the end of this week. Anything's possible. Let's wait and see.
Interesting. Sai has said, have negotiations began for Boots and Teofimo Lopez?
There's been conversations around it, but I think, it's very early stages. Boots wants to unify. He wants to unify at 147. That's his aim. So let's see how things play out. That doesn't mean that fight can't happen, but I think Boots' sort of dream is to unify his titles with someone else.
Around Boots, Frank, the only thing that I just wanted to clear up, and obviously I haven't watched every single interview that's happened, but I was mindful that Boots was sort of elevating his weight. He didn't really want to stay at 147. I think there was several conversations about that. He needs to go up to a bigger weight. And then all of a sudden it's sort of like flipped on its head, and it's like now he wants to obviously unify. What was the catalyst to revert that conversation? Because I thought he was going up to 154.
I mean, look, I know there was talk, obviously, post-fight as well. Post-fight is very different for fighters. When they've gone through a 12 rounds of a fight, and then you want their immediate reaction. I don't write that off at some point, but I think the aim right now is to unify. That's his dream. That's what he wants to do. Because once he goes to 154, he's never coming back to 147 is the reality. So he's never going to have that chance to be a unified champ. I'm not saying impossible, but you know what it's like with fighters. Once they make that step, it's very difficult to then come back down in that weight. So I think his plan and aim is to become unified at 147 and then move on from there.
Okay, I think we've covered the one about Justice thinking about taking a step up with his activity. We've got another one from Owen. Question for Frank. Are you still talking to Lee Wood at the moment in regards to a fight? He said on Twitter he'll be signing something in the next 2 weeks. So can we confirm if that's with Matchroom or not?
We've looked at opportunities with him over the last, I guess, 13, 14 months now. We've offered him fights. Let's see. There's a lot of people will be offering him potential opportunities, but we have offered him fights. Whether that's us, it could be that we do a fight with him, but I'm sure he's got a lot of offers on the table.
I've got to give this one in. Alex Bellotti has been a subscriber of mine for a bit. I know he goes around trolling people. He said he's Frank Hearn looking forward to his Christmas dinner with the Eubanks. We've got to have a little bit of sarcasm in there. Good afternoon, Alex.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't think I got invited to the Hearn name yet. So first and foremost, that I haven't been given that name. Although I am looking for it, because I think after all these years, I might as well just change my name. It might be easier and get me into one of the wheels. In terms of the Christmas dinner, we'll park that one. I'm not getting involved in the back and forth. I'm going to rise above it.
I like it. Oh, this is a good one and a good question, actually. Is Alpha Barrett still with you guys? And that's from Sai as well.
Yeah, we were involved in his. So he was having a sort of 8-round warm-up fight on Steve Wood's show, which we were involved in. It didn't end up happening. It got delayed for a couple of reasons. But the plan is to do a fight with Zelfa in the new year. Probably get a run out first and then go from there. But yeah, we're still working with Zelfa currently.
Oh, nice one. I'll come back to the chat in a minute. What I want to say is a massive congratulations on the Birmingham show that you did a couple of weeks ago. I mean, Frank, I never saw. Look, Galal Yafai, Sonny Edwards, beautiful match made in heaven. As far as fight styles are concerned, like you said, there's a little bit of family history there, but I never saw that fight turning out the way it did. I mean, you're sat ringside. X came up straight away with that corner, all the cornering, what was going on with Sonny. I mean, your thoughts on that? And did you get that fast time reaction as well? Was you sat ringside, notifications coming up on your phone? What was it like for you?
Yeah, I mean, look, I got rid of X, so I don't really see
Oh
as
yeah,
much
I
of the.
forgot.
I know I had to get rid of it. So,
Yeah.
but what a fight! What a fight! And what a show and build up as well. These are the kind of fights and events we talk about that we need for British boxing. Galal Yafai, Sonny Edwards, respect to them both stepping in there. Really like early stages of. Although Galal is slightly older, early stage of his career, and for Sonny as well, 28 years old, and I know he's now made the decision to retire, but it was the best fight to be made in the division and the best fight for both of them as well, because it got people talking. I mean, look at that venue in there, the amount of people we had in there. And when you think at that weight, who would have thought you'd be
There
able to
you
create?
go.
We've seen some great nights, especially in the US at that weight. But as both guys said, to create an event like that and the build up and everything around it, there was no hate or dislike between the two of them.
No.
There was respect the whole way through because they do respect each other. They respect each other's ability, and as people, they've known each other from their GB days for many, many years. There was the back and forth between the families, and that happens. That happens. And but yeah, a great fight and a great performance from Galal Yafai, a special fighter. Who's going to go all the way. Obviously, Olympic gold medalist, won the WBC interim. There will now look to go and win a full title. So Galal's got so much ahead of him, and so many big nights for Birmingham as well. And obviously, huge respect to Sonny, who's actually working the commentary this weekend in Monaco. He is one of those people who has taken every challenge. He's always wanted big fights. He's never shied away from anything, and he's been great for the sport, and will continue to be great for the sport in whatever role he chooses to be involved in.
And that's what I really do like, because obviously you've signed him. He's had a few fights with you. Like you said, he dared to be great. He is a character in the sport, and we do have a lot of time for Sonny Edwards. Personally, he's been really good to me as well, outside of boxing. So it was a bittersweet moment, to see him decide to retire. But he is probably, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but he's definitely good for commentary. Put it this way, I think he'll add that silver lining to your commentary team moving forward. And it's nice that you've kept him on, like to say, like with Tony Bellew, he's still there. He's one of the fighters. He's still there. You still keep him under that like Matchroom umbrella.
Yeah, look, he's very good at what he does.
Yeah,
Bellew the same, and they're sort of, in some ways, Sonny's like a divisive character who will say what he thinks, which is good, and you need that. You need that honesty, and I think he has an unbelievable understanding of the sport. He's been doing it his whole life, but he also speaks very well. He speaks a lot better than I do. And he can speak on the subject matter, and he's been in there, and he's relevant. He's 28 years old. There's not many people more relevant with him within who will now go into that type of role and can speak on the sport itself and speak to a younger audience as well. Because
definitely.
like I say, he's done amazing things for the division he's in, because he's been outspoken, because he's built a narrative and a story around himself. So, it's good to have him on board. And that's what we always try and do, and that comes back to the relationship piece. When you keep a good relationship with people, there's always going to be opportunities.
And what I do like is the fact that the torch has been passed to Galal Yafai now, who, you don't really see him on social media, but he's sort of like he's out there more, and you're saying, oh yeah, I'd love to see more fights in Birmingham. It's like that homecoming for him. I know this is like the second time he's fought there as a professional, because I think he fought back in September a year ago. But it's like, it's giving him that fire in his belly that he needed, where he's like, okay, let's start having this now. I loved it at home, and I really want to see some more fights in the city.
Yeah, look, and Galal is exciting to watch. He's a
He
tremendous
is.
fighter. You know, what he's done in the amateurs, as we know him, winning the Olympic gold. But then to go on in the pros, he's moved straight into 10 and 12 round fights and challenged himself throughout and gone in against the best. Many people would have said that fight against Sonny was too soon. You know, Sonny was out, you know, obviously from the BAM defeat, but still number one in that division with BAM moving, you know. And I think there's so many big fights for Galal to be involved in. And when you have that fighting style like he does, that excitement, you're going to build a fan base. He's not the biggest talk, like as in he's not the outspoken character. He's quite funny, but
He
he's
is
quite
witty,
quiet
yeah.
and reserved as well. Like he doesn't want to be out and about slagging people off. He wants to just deliver in the ring, and that's what he does. And it's a great time for Birmingham boxing because look at the card there, look at the fighters on the undercard, the ticket sales, you know, and it's somewhere we're going to try and make a home of.
We do like that. That's definitely positive. New signings then. Obviously, we've got Pat Brown. Congratulations on that. I've got to say, I really enjoyed the promo or the video, the fact of the black and white and the use of the word red because of his football team, all of that. So shout out to obviously Alex Hainsey and, you know, the guys there at Matchroom. Choosing Pat Brown, what was it about him that stood out to you?
Look, I think he's a fighter everyone wanted. You know, he went to the Olympics, didn't medal, but he went to the Olympics, and it's not always going to go your way. Amateur boxing is very different to pro boxing. And when he came into our office with, you know, Sam Jones and his team, and sat down, and I've said this a few times, when he sat down and said, "I just love having tear ups," I thought,
Yeah,
yes, you know, like look, at the end of the day, the casual fan loves to see knockouts and
we
loves to
do.
see brawl. Like that's the reality of it, right? You know, you have a lot of fans who like silky skill and boxing, but at the same time, we want to see knockouts and we want to see great fights. Pat Brown is just going to be in great fights because that's the style he fights. You know, so when he came into our office and said that, we were like, "Yep, you're the one for us." And he's real. You know, he's gonna. You saw the announcement we did for him, the press conference. Had
Yeah,
four or
so
five
many
hundred people
people.
turn up to the press conference
Yeah,
alone. You know, he's gonna he's going to bring back those old nights of British
all right.
boxing because I think he's got the character and everything that goes alongside it. So every man and their dog wanted to sign Pat Brown, so we're delighted we got that done. You know, we've also just signed Tara Moana, who
Yes,
who debuts with us. Obviously not his debut fight, but debuts with us on Saturday in Monaco as well. You know, heavyweight. I don't know if you saw the clips of him. You
he's
know,
4-0,
fast,
isn't he?
powerful. Yeah,
Yep.
4-0. So he debuts with us this Saturday here, and he's another one, Australian Olympian, who we believe, you know, can really do some special things in the sport. You know, so we're looking at global stars coming out of the Olympics and who we can look to build. You know, we've got Bia Ferreira as well, boxes on Saturday's card in Monaco. Another Olympian went to Paris. You know, world champion. So we're excited about the future, and I think we got some great fighters. And as with everything we do, it's really looked at with a global vision.
Looking at Pat Brown, he obviously he's going to campaign at cruiserweight, but it doesn't look like too long before he could potentially go up to heavyweight because he's just got a really natural, like a big stature about him. I know what you did with Galal Yafai in the beginning. You like matched him highly. He went into his debut, a 10-round fight. I remember the press conference down in London when I think was it the WBC Silver. You were literally throwing him right in there. Is that the same attitude? Albeit, I know obviously Galal's a medalist, but are you going to do something similar with Pat and think about who in the cruiserweight you could put him up against with that first challenge for him as a pro?
Yeah, look, we'll move at the right pace with him. It's different with the different weight divisions, you know, as well. I think it's not going to be as fast as Galal's movement through the ranks, but you know, we're going to see how things progress. You know, he's got a great team with Jamie Moore and Nigel behind him as well,
Yep.
who have been with, you know, Nigel's been with him throughout, and his dad as well, who, you know, runs the local gym as well. So, you know, he has got everyone who knows what they're doing behind him, and he's going to be moved at the pace that makes sense for him. You know, and the focus for us is going to be to build him as well, build him not just in Manchester but around the UK, as well as internationally. You know, he's got, like I say, he's got the style that is going to entertain people, and we need to get him out there and keep him as active as possible, and that's going to be the focus for us.
with Matchroom and the signings, are you fair enough? And obviously, Pat Brown is from the UK, but would you say that your signings are more targeted to be global? Because sometimes it feels as if like Frank Warren's got the UK arm and he's like pulling people, the UK fighters in, and then it seems like Matchroom are looking at like the global arm. Is it like that, or are you just signing who you want to sign, and it's just coincidence that sometimes Matchroom signs the global fighters, the non-UK fighters, and Queensbury tends to majority of their fighters are from the UK?
Look, our eyes will always be on British talent, of course. It's one of our core markets as well as the US. But at the same time, we're a global business. We're really the only promoters in the world who are promoting shows globally week in, week out, and signing fighters. You know, like when you look at our stable outside of like British American fighters, obviously you've got Dimitri Bivol, who's been with us for 6-7 years now, been involved in some of the biggest fights.
Yep.
You know, you look at some of our Uzbek fighters, you know, Shakran Giasov soon to fight for the world title. Israel Madrimov, you know, had to obviously withdraw from the December fight, but fights Virgil
Yeah.
Ortiz. You know, just fought Terence Crawford. You know, you've got MJ Akmadaliev, who's the mandatory challenger for Inoue, who fights on Saturday as
Yep.
well. You know, you've got a whole host of Australian fighters we've signed as well. You know, there's so many great fighters, and we look boxing's a global sport, and we have, like I say again, we have a global vision with everything we do. It doesn't mean we take our eyes off the ball of signing great British talent, because we've got a number of shows to deliver there. But it is, everything we do is viewed with that global vision as well, and we want to build global stars.
Yeah, could do the advertisement, like I said, when you sign Pat Brown, absolutely phenomenal. Do you think that you could do potentially some advertising campaigns like that, so the UK eyes can like really get invested in some of the fighters that you sign that aren't UK based? That type of like promo to pull us in and think, oh, let's have a look at that fighter.
Yeah, like I have to be honest, and maybe I'm biased, and I
No,
don't mind
yeah,
saying I can be biased, but I really think our content and our creative team are sort of unrivaled within the
yeah,
sport in terms of, you know, I'm not saying broadcasters, separate broadcasters from it, but when you look at independent promoters and put in these things together, look, we've made huge investments, you know, over figures into our
mm,
content team, you know, our production, everything we do, and that's something that's very important to us. Alex Haynes, as you say, has done a tremendous job. He's got a big team of people as part of his team as well. But when you look at like even the Monaco promo, very different. You know, it
oh
was
yeah, we love
you
them.
know, that was a brilliant promo they put together. Look at the Edwards promo they put together as well. Look at the Two Kings sort of creative concept they came up with around Bam and Jaron Ennis. And this is just, we're talking about 2 months here. You know, and this is what these guys are doing, guys and girls doing back to back, day in, day out. And I really do think that that's something for me that I've pushed hard really with the spend to make sure that no one comes close to us, because I think it's important. I think that's
Oh no, is that me? Have I gone? Can you let me know in the chat if
something that's gone. I'm sorry.
is somebody phoning you?
Yeah, can you
This
hear
is what. Yeah, I've got you. Yeah.
me? The storytelling, you know, everything those guys do within our team, something we push very hard for, because days of old, that's what boxing was so good at, and I think it's
Yes.
died off really. So you know,
Yep.
it's something we're pushing, and we're making a lot of hires as well within that space. Our social team, our digital team. You know, people talk about platforms within the sport. There's no easier platform to sell yourself now than social media. That's the reality of it. You know, look at everyone that's famous now. How do they become famous?
True.
Really, social
True.
media. You know, it doesn't matter if you can create really a, again, you go back to the thing of a narrative and a story around yourself. And not everyone's story has to be the same. You know, not everyone has to have the same fan base. Not everyone has to have the same approach with it.
Oh no, he's disappeared again. Frank, you've disappeared again. This is what happens when you are live. We get glitches, but I think somebody's probably trying to phone him. Let me have a look into the chat while we wait for him to come back on. What I'll probably do is send him a message to tell him to go out and come back in. Frank, jump out of the link and then jump back in if you can. Because I think sometimes when people call, it just messes up. If you can hear me, let me just send. Hold on. Let me have a look. Let me just send him a quick message. Jump out. It's usually my reception that's messy. Jump out and jump back in. This is what I could do with the production team. But I'm doing it all alone. Oh, here we go. Are you there?
You got me?
Oh, there he is. There he is.
Sorry, yeah, don't know what happened.
It's okay. It's okay. Let me jump back to the questions as well, and because this one stands out. Conor Benn, when is he fighting? Because it's looking like it's all systems go for Conor now. So
yeah, working on that now. You know, he's been out at the WBC convention, as he's made very clear in his interviews. His focus is to fight Barrios for the world title. You know, and that's what he wants to do. He wants to be involved in big world title fights. You know, there is discussions around the Eubank fight, as we know.
Yeah.
You know, that's a huge fight. You can't shy away from that. But at the same time, it has to make sense. You know, and but look, his words are make the Barrios fight. So let's see.
How long do you think that would take to potentially make? Is there any? Are you in like talks? Is it looking like it's positive or?
Yeah, look, I think we're looking at it. We've had some discussions. You know, he wants to fight as soon as possible. You know, into Q1. So let's see how things play out. You know, he's had a long time out the ring, but he wants to go straight back into the big fights.
Yeah. Okay. Right. I'm going to leave that question as the final one from the chat. Any more UK signings in the pipeline? And that kind of finishes off what we were talking about anyway.
Yeah, one or two that we're working on now with the team. So let's see. But one or two UK ones and a few international as well.
Chef Clark also fights this weekend on the Monaco card. You know, I've heard personally from somebody that's been in with him and been in with other cruiserweights that he's probably the hardest hitting cruiserweight out there. A problem you've got with Chef Clark. Obviously, you know, he's got his fight on the weekend. What are the plans with him? And now, like, we've got Boxer sort of under the Riyadh season umbrella as well. Chef Clark versus Vidal Riley, a fight that I'd love to see. I know there's obviously Isaac Chamberlain as well, but what's your plan around Chef Clark? I understand you want to push him towards world level, etc., European world level, but what are your plans?
Yeah, I was with him earlier, actually. I was on the flight with him earlier. I was saying what an active year he's had. He fought in Belfast in January. He fought on the Taylor Catterall undercard in May. He fought in LA in August, and now he fights in Monaco. Like, he's had a tremendous year, and he stayed active and stayed busy and stayed in the gym. You know, and he's been on a great run, and he's tested himself as well. But you know, we've had this before. We've spoken about this a lot. You need to test yourself, because if you're going to go in against the kind of guys that he's going to go in with, he needs to be ready for those nights. You know, he's got a real test against Mosquera on the Saturday for the European title. His opportunity to win the European title. He's obviously won the British. You know, he's won some international belts as well. Obviously, the focus is always to get to World Championships. But as you say, there's some big domestic fights for him as well. He won't be looking past Saturday night, but those big domestic fights are there. So let's see how things play out. But he's also in a division where there is an opportunity, probably towards the end of next year, to fight for a world title, I'd say. You know, when you start looking at the pipeline, he's not a million miles off that, really.
Yeah, definitely one of your good fighters amongst the Matchroom stable. Listen, I know you've got commitments and stuff to do, Frank, and we've got lots to talk about. Week by week, there's always something coming out in boxing. So I'm going to leave you alone for now, but no doubt I'll be in your DM saying, Frank, what are you doing next week? I hope you don't mind that.
Anytime. I'm always around.
Listen, thank you all to the chat. Thank you for the questions. Sorry, I couldn't get through all of the questions. You know what it's like. I've got so much in my head to ask the guests. Sometimes I don't get to go through all of the questions. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. And yeah, Frank, we'll catch up soon. Enjoy your week.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. See you soon.
Anytime.
People say I'm toxic, and honestly, I don't care.